just a couple weeks ago in Knoxville, Black-Green Delirium. He's going to play against Zackery Phillips, who is playing the Red-Green Energy deck. It is a little bit aggressive, with obviously Lanthanow Hellion, Long Tusk Cub. You've got Bristling Hydra, some pump spells as well. To note, these two did play in Modern yesterday, and Zackery, I believe, won that match. So maybe Brad looking to get a little revenge here as we are underway this morning. It's an Attune with Aether here from Phillips. That'll be an easy last name to remember, as he does get 2 energy. Nelson starting things off with a Hissing Quagmire. Basic Mountain there for Phillips, and now we go over to Nelson. This is going to surprise you. I seriously think this is the first match I've called with someone who has the same last name as me.
I was about to ask if this is a first.
Yeah. It's a common last name.
Yeah, my last name fairly common, and of course Adrian Sullivan, a high-profile Sullivan. So I've gotten to call several matches that way.
Our Grim Flayer here from Nelson in a passing of the turn. We will go back over to Zackery Phillips. He will draw a card. And there is a mountain. This is a Servant of the Conduit, 2 energy on the way. He is up to 4 now. We go back over to Brad Nelson. Nelson will untap and draw. Zoom in. Looks to be a Blooming Marsh.
Pretty interesting start here for Phillips, as this has all the makings of an Aetherworks Marvel draw so far. Wonder if Nelson is aware of Phillips' standard deck here.
Brad going to start by attacking with Grim Flayer. There will be an attempt at a trade, and here's 2 the slaughter. Now remember, Grim Flayer does have trample, so the 2 damage will come across, which also means that he will get to trigger the Grim Flayer. So take a look at the top couple of cards, and Nelson will decide how he wants to rearrange them.
Yeah, good operations there from Nelson. It's possible there that he would want to attack and do something else if Phillips didn't block, but because Grim Flayer has trample, it's a freebie to at least attack first, and if Phillips runs no blocks, then maybe do something else with your mana.
Liliana the Veil and Grasp of Darkness will go to the graveyard. 2 cards here for Delirium. A couple more card types to go. For Phillips, we'll see what his 3rd turn yields. Start with an Aether Hub, up to 5 energy. And now it's a Voltaic Brawler, and that is kind of the giveaway that this is not an Aetherworks Marvel deck.
Most likely no.
Yes.
This would be quite the backup plan.
Nelson will draw a Forest for the turn. It's his 4th turn of the game. Now, a card like Bristling Hydra can be difficult for a deck like Nelson's to beat, and there's plenty of energy on the other side of the table there for Phillips. This is a Transgress the Mind. Take a look here at Phillips' hand. You'll see at least a Blossoming Defense. Nelson will take a look at the rest. There's at least 1 Bristling Hydra as well. Looks like a Lanthanow Hellion 2. So Brad will write down the contents, and he will exile a card here from Phillips' hand in just a moment. Transgress, a card that you sometimes see in the main deck with Black-Green Delirium, mostly in the sideboard. You'll see 3 typically throughout the 75, however.
If you expect the top 2 decks to be Flash and the Mirror, Transgressor 2 in the main seems totally fine.
The other card in Zackery Phillips' hand that we did not get a great glimpse at initially, but we can see now, is Sky Sovereign Council Flagship. So Bristling Hydra will bite the dust. And now here comes Grim Flayer. And a couple of card types there in Nelson's graveyard. Here's Voltaic Brawler, and now here's a Grapple with the Past.
And now with an artifact and enchantment in the graveyard, Delirium enabled.
A Vessel of Nascency, Pilgrim's Eye now in the graveyard. You see Nelson's going to separate all the card types. Looks like he has 6 now. That was easy. And now Brad's got to decide what he wants to get back with Grapple of the Past, but it looks like Grim Flayer is just always going to be a 4/4 Trampler now, which means that Zackery Phillips is going to need to use a Blossoming Defense to even cause a trade here.
Pretty good attack there from Nelson, too, because he has plausible deniability. It's still a trade, even if Nelson doesn't have a way to get instant speed Delirium. So there's a good chance Philip blocks, and then Nelson gets to play the grapple he was going to play anyway, and now put Phillips in between a rock and a hard place.
And the likelihood of grapple missing there is
really low.
Boy, is it low.
And even if he does miss, it's still a trade. There's no disaster there. He plays with either trades with the brawler or the blossoming defense.
Yep. Oh, that Pilgrim's Eye looks like it's on the way back. Again, he'll still have Delirium with an Enchantment, Planeswalker, land, instant, and sorcery in the graveyard. Phillips going to have to use an energy. He's down to 6 to play a blossoming defense. So there is your trade. And now we'll go back Phillips' way. Running out of resources here pretty quickly. Drew a Forest. Now he'll play a Hellion. 2 energy will be granted. An attack here for 4 is going to knock Nelson down to 16. Phillips, I think, was going to play that Forest. Last card in hand now is a Skyship Sovereign. He'll use the 2 energy for the Hellion to keep it around, and we'll go back over to Brad Nelson.
Although Nelson, fairly low on resources himself, has the Emrakul in hand.
Just going to play a Pilgrim's Eye, get a Swamp past the turn back. Emrakul is certainly something to work towards. We do know that. Well, 5th land off the top means here's Sky Sovereign. That'll take care of the Pilgrim's Eye, and here's an attack for 4. This is Emrakul for 6 mana. Nice. Really nice. Brad going to crew the Hellion, Sky Sovereign will trigger, and Brad says, you know what, you don't want to pay the energy for the Hellion too. Not a bad turn.
Good turn.
Not a bad turn.
Good turn.
Yep. So that was crew the Sky Sovereign, attack with the Sky Sovereign, trigger, target Emrakul. Emrakul will eat the Sky Sovereign, trigger for the Lathon Hellion, keep the energy around. Nope. And now I'll attack you for 13. Pretty fun card.
It's a different story every time.
It sure is.
We know that about Mindslavers.
It sure is.
It is just so different.
Ishkana along with 3 spiders. That's a lot of bodies, and that'll take care of that game. Brad Nelson going to win game number 1 here over Zackery Phillips. Black-green Delirium. Now very quickly up a game here over red-green Energy. We'll now turn our attention over to the sideboards, and as we do so, we will start with Zackery Phillips, who's got 3 Galvanic Bombardment, 2 Natural State, 4 Incendiary Flow, 2 Plummet, a Clip Wings, an Appetite for the Unnatural, a Chandra, Torch of Defiance, and a Nissa, Vital Force.
I'm down with the 2 Planeswalkers here. I think the Clip Wings is a fine card to bring in if he wants, or the Plummets if he wants a little bit of anti-Mind Rack Demon technology. I'm not a huge fan of the burden in the matchup or the small removal, so not a whole lot for Phillips to bring in.
For Nelson's side of things, you're going to see a lot of 2s and 1s. 2 Lost Legacy, 2 Pick the Brain. A Transgress the Mind, an Appetite for the Unnatural. A Flaying Tendrils with 2 The Slaughter, and Obnixilis Reignited. 2 Deadweight, 2 Natural State, and 2 Tireless Tracker.
A little bit of the mid-range removal here. The 2 copies of Deadweight and the 2 The Slaughter line up pretty well here, as does the Obnixilis.
Yeah, 2 The Slaughter in this matchup, I think it's just pretty important for him to have pretty clean answers to Bristling Hydra. In that previous game, he was able to take it via discard, but he also has copies of 2 The Slaughter, both in his main and his sideboard, which will be pretty helpful.
And reasonable to assume that Phillips can have some Planeswalkers in the sideboard as well for this kind of matchup.
So there are the options there for Phillips and Nelson. Phillips will be on the play here for game number 2, and while they do shuffle up and get ready, we're going to discuss the StarCityGames.com weekly sale, where until Monday at 10:59 a.m., we got some pretty cool discounts going on.
Absolutely. This week it happens to be 15% off thousands of non-English cards. Every week Star City Games has a new sale starting Monday, 11 o'clock Eastern Time that runs for a week. And then there's a new sale every Monday. So make sure to check back to the website once per week. And again, weekly sale going on right now, 15% off thousands of non-English cards.
Big shout to everyone taking part in our Black Friday weekend, our Cyber Monday sales, and our weekly sales. Thank you to everybody out there as we do get ready here for game number 2 here between Zackery Phillips and Brad Nelson. Brad Nelson, the player we're going to take a moment to learn a little bit more about right now. He is the initial Players Champion back in the day, 2014. He is the 30-year-old who currently resides in Roanoke, Virginia. He's got 9 open top 8s, 2 wins. Most recently in Knoxville a couple weeks ago with this Black-Green Delirium deck. 2 invitational top 8s, make it 3. He had one recently in New Jersey with 1 invitational win a few years ago in Indianapolis. He's a big-time golfer, big StarCraft 2 fan, and he's a pretty darn good Magic player, too.
One of the best in multi-format constructed tournaments, which lends itself very nicely to invitational and Players Championship success.
Yes, it does. Yes, it does for Brad Nelson. probably going to see him again at the Players' Championship. This would be his third one in a row. We saw him again win the first one, make the top 4 of the second one before being knocked out by Jim Davis. And we'll see if he can make another one here. I know this is a goal of his. He came very close in New Jersey, what he was deeming a PCQ for the Invitational, a Players' Championship qualifier, making the top 4 there. And he's in pretty good shape here in regards to just a points invitation.
Yeah, I think he was questioning whether or not he just had the bandwidth and the energy to be grinding the SCG Tour and was really looking at the invitationals as his route to get there. And technically, he still could. I mean, he's 6-2 right now. He's still within striking distance of the top 8, but he was able to do enough, it seems, to cobble together a Season 3 point invite. Still work left to be done. A lot of things can still happen, but Brad, definitely over 50%, I would say, to make the PC at this point.
Yeah, I think he's in pretty good shape, especially with Felicetti falling out of the running here.
Yes.
And having such a bad tournament. For Nelson, it's really it's in my hands.
Mm-hmm.
I've just got to keep winning. I've got a standard deck that I like a lot. Not entirely sure what he's on for Modern this week, and we do know that he's been a big fan of Death Shadow aggro for the past handful of months, so he might be on that deck. And it is confirmed that he's playing Death Shadow again.
Where he got his invitational top 4 in New Jersey.
Mm-hmm.
Losing to Jadine Comparins in the semifinals.
Yep. So it looks like these players, I believe, taking a mulligan. Yep, looking at 6 cards apiece. We'll see if they can find hands that they like. And it looks like Zackery Phillips cannot. Looks like Nelson might be happy enough with his starting hand. One thing about this energy deck, it is certainly prone to mulligans.
Yeah.
It is a combo deck in the loosest definition of the term, I think. It is trying to do things with larger than life and blossoming defense, and sometimes we see some double strike effects. It can be very aggressive too.
Its best draws are very, very aggressive. I think average draws are a bit on the slower side, which makes me skeptical of its place in the metagame right now, because I don't think you're going to be affording to play a more ponderous beatdown deck. I think Flash and Delirium are both too punishing on those kind of strategies.
Phillips will take a look at a couple more cards here, see if he can keep this hand.
Sky Sovereign is a card I would have no interest in casting this weekend, for example. If you're going to beat down, I want to be underneath things.
A little too mid-rangey?
Yeah, a little bit.
Cinderglade is where Phillips starts for Nelson. It's a Blooming Marsh. Another Cinderglade there for Phillips. Now we head back over to Brad. He'll play a Forest. Does he have a Grim Flayer? Looks like he does not, so we go over to Phillips. Phillips with a Long Tusk Cub. Play a Game Trail past the turn back. It'll be time for a grapple here for Nelson. A Tireless Tracker, a Forest, and another grapple with the past are in the graveyard. We'll see what Nelson wants to return.
Also skeptical of playing the ally color beatdown strategies.
Yeah, just get worse mana that way.
Phillips is on a lot of copies of Shivan Oasis so far.
Yeah. Tireless Tracker back to the end there for Nelson. He'll play a Forest. He'll play the Tracker, return, grapple the pass. We go back over to Zackery Phillips. He'll draw a card. Phillips' 4th turn of the game. He's made some land drops thus far, and now there is an Incendiary Flow. That will exile the Tracker. Aether Hub will grant him an energy. And now here's an attack for 2 with the Cub. Now he's up to 3 energy. We're going to go back over to Nelson now. Nelson will draw a Forest.
And those Incendiary Flows out of the sideboard here. I was not expecting them to come in for this matchup. Delirium, kind of a hard deck to burn out, and not a lot of threats are tagged, but Tireless Tracker, you could do a lot worse than getting that one.
There's a Tracker, a Forest. We'll bring a Clue, and now a Vessel of Nascency. Now we go back over to Zackery Phillips. Maybe Nelson having some slight mana problems as here's a Harness Lightning to take care of the tracker. It's unclear at this point, but Lightning will bring Phillips up to 4 energy now after using 2 from the powerful instant. Bristling Hydra, and I believe Chandra in hand.
Good set of leftovers.
Yeah. Going to use the energy to pump up the Cub, and also going to be granted 2 energy after the hit, and now here is the Planeswalker.
And Nelson with nothing going on the battlefield right now.
It'd be a heck of a time for 2 to slaughter with Delirium if he has it. For now, Long Tusk Cub will be exiled from Chandra's +1. Nelson will take 2, and we'll head back Brad's way. See what comes next here for Nelson. We'll start by cracking a Vessel of Nascency. 1 tracker exiled, the other one should just be in the grave.
Yeah, one was harnessed and the other was incendiary flowed.
Correct. Looks like Nelson has a question here. Gonna get the game state cleared up a touch.
Yeah.
I think he's saying I cracked my vessel and I realized that this should actually be in the graveyard.
I mean, Nelson can't choose to exile his own tireless tracker for no reason.
No, he cannot. I think there's just going to be some clarification about where the card should be in relation to his graveyard. So these players will get this cleared up here in just a moment. But right now, for Zackery Phillips, he's actually off to a really nice start.
Yeah, this is great. I mean, he's been able to keep the battlefield clean. Nelson missing double black, so he can't cast the grapple in hand. And he's attacking Nelson now from multiple angles. He is very exposed to 2 slaughter, as you mentioned before.
Yes, he absolutely is. Pull to a double face shot, please, like this. Thank you. Talk to the judge so we know what they're communicating.
Yep.
So we will see our table spotter there, going to let us know exactly what's happening. Looks like he's going to cast a Traverse. Yep. Tracker's in the graveyard now. Allows Nelson to search for a swamp. Nelson saying, I wanted to crack my vessel, but my tracker should have been in the graveyard, so it definitely affects my play, and now here's to the slaughter. So This all makes sense now. As now the Planeswalker and the Cub bite the dust, given that To the Slaughter did have Delirium. Now here's Bristling Hydra, 3 energy. And we'll see if Nelson has another To the Slaughter for this. Going to start by cracking Vessel of Nascency. Top 4 cards here for Brad. One of them is a Mind Rack Demon, Pilgrim's Eye, Traverse the Uvenwald, and a Swamp.
I'm guessing with Delirium enabled here that Traverse is the card. Oh, okay. It's like Pilgrim's Eye instead.
Can't take sorcery
Oh.
with Vessel.
Excuse me. Can't take a spell here, so has to go for the Pilgrim's Eye instead. I don't think he had the land left over in hand to cast the Mind Rack Demon this turn, so that sort of forces him to take the Pilgrim's Eye.
Going to play a Blooming Marsh and simply pass the turn back. Will Nelson over to Phillips. And Phillips will untap and draw. He was in a good spot. He's not in a great spot anymore. He's going to play a Mountain. Bristling Hydra, you have to imagine, is going to attack here.
If Phillips is waiting here, I imagine that he has drawn a removal spell and is thinking about casting it. I don't know what else would give him pause in this spot.
Yeah, I believe Incendiary Flow was the draw. Here comes the Hydra. Yeah, I think this is kind of what Pilgrim's Eye does, right?
Yep.
It just kind of sits there, finds a land, and is ready to chump block.
It's a first ballot Hall of Famer chump blocker. No question.
Nelson will sacrifice the clue he made earlier with a Tireless Tracker to draw a card. There's a swamp.
I mean, he's got 2 copies of Grasp, and he's playing against only 5 energy, so he can conceivably go for it here.
Nelson will just pass for now. Phillips will draw. Incendiary Flow in hand. New card, somewhat of a mystery. If there is a Hissing Quagmire down there for Nelson, as now here's a Virtuous Gear Hulk. Looking to make these creatures a little bit larger. Trigger will be on the stack. I believe Brad will pause. Zackery Phillips. And you see these are going to be the targets. 2 and 2 will be the split on the Powerful Gear Hulk. There's a Grasp. A response. It'll bring Phillips down to 2 energy. And a response here again is another Grasp of Darkness, which means the Bristling Hydra will bite the dust. Now the Gearhawk will resolve it as a 6/6 Trampler, and we head back Nelson's way. He will untap.
Yeah, I like going for 6/6 there, trying to get a spread that can fight through Mind Rack Demon.
Appetite. The Unnatural will take care of the Gearhawk. Nelson will gain a little bit of life. Play a land past that turn back. Over to Zackery Phillips.
And Brad really light on action here and just hoping that Phillips starts drawing a couple lands here and there. Although Nelson at 14, he's got a lot of time to work with here, and his high impact draws are all game enders or close to it.
Servant of the Conduits will bring along 2 energy. Just a 2/2, however. You mentioned that Brad does have quite a bit of life to work with. Servant not really going to clock Brad all that much. He will come across for 2, bring Nelson down to 12, and Phillips will pass the turn. Nelson will draw. Well, it looks like he might be in store for some jump blocking.
Although not yet. Nelson with Murder in hand.
Okay.
So it looks like he's just kind of hanging back, willing to take a couple hits off the Servant of Conduit. Phillips with a lot of high-quality mid-range plays here. So Nelson willing to take a shot or 2 before pulling the trigger on Murder on the Servant.
We'll head back over to Phillips here. There's Nather Hub, a little more energy. Up to 5 for Zackery. And now, Larger Than Life. And that is going to be fine. We'll take a look at Larger Than Life. Sees a little bit of play in the old limited format. Time to time. +4/+4 and gains Trample. So 6/6 Trampler. I think Nelson might just say, you know what? I'm just going to murder it.
Yep.
If you have Blossoming Defense, it could be a little bit annoying, but Phillips doesn't.
And the Blossoming Defense is going to be really good against the Murder at some point anyway. There's no way to really avoid it. Phillips has too much mana to work with. Huh!
Pilgrim's Eye in. Nelson with just 2 lands in hand, so we are in an interesting stage of the game. Both players looking to top deck out of this situation. We'll see who draws better. Phillips reaching for mana, so it looks like he's found something to do. And he certainly has here in Bristling Hydra. Up to 8 energy. Pretty good draw. We'll go over to Nelson. He's tapping mana quickly. That is also a pretty good draw. It's a Mind Rack Demon. And turn over the top 4 cards of his deck. Mostly lands. Ob Nixilis in there as well. And Zackery Phillips says, I want to take a little look at your graveyard if you don't mind. What makes Black-Green Delirium so scary to play against in a situation like this, Patrick, is Ishkana looks very good, Emrakul looks very good, and Traverse also ties it all together.
All his draws are very powerful, and as the game goes on, he's able to put more stuff in the graveyard. The stuff that pulls things out of his graveyard also become more and more powerful. A lot of pressure here on Phillips to basically keep drawing spells. I mean, he's done very nicely for himself. He's basically gotten to 5 mana and then stopped. He's had, I think, 1 drawn land against a lot of spells over the last few turns, and that's what he really needs to be doing here.
Here's a Tune with the Ether. Gonna bring Phillips up to 10 energy, play a forest, and just pass the turn back, I believe. We'll see if he wants to attack or not.
I think with all the pumping, he can only get the Hydra to a 7/6, and that's something that Brad can double block. Oh, excuse me, now. No, now with 7/6, he's over the top. Yeah, he's good.
Go back over to Nelson here. I think it might be another Mind Rack Demon. It is. Okay, so he's going to try to reform more cards. Nothing really of consequence there outside of an Ishkana, I believe. Placed into the graveyard.
And I think Brad's probably committed to trying to hang back and double block this. These are not the easiest threats for Phillips to remove from the battlefield, and time is on Nelson's side.
Phillips is drawing another copy of Bristling Hydra, so this is getting a little bit interesting here.
I mean, he can trade off the one Hydra for one of the Mind Rack Demons now, and then have enough energy where his second Hydra plays over the top of Brad's second Mind Rack Demon. It's a slow way, though. I mean, this is a lot of turns you're giving Nelson. Not to say that Phillips has a better path here, but you're seeing these mid-range threats, even when they're large, it does give Nelson a lot of breathing space to top deck some of his very powerful cards.
Yep. So they'll trade. And now here's another Hydra. 3 more energy. Gonna bring Phillips back up to 10. Nelson will draw a card. Hissing Quagmire is not bad. Death Touch, very relevant in a spot like this. Here comes the Hydra. Will Nelson block? What's somewhat interesting about a spot like this is when you think about the red-green energy deck, you think of a much more combo-oriented version, which has larger than life and blossoming defense and more pump spells and the ability to give creatures double strike and trample. That's actually not this deck. You're not going to find cards like Electrostatic Pummeler here. It's just red-green energy cards.
Yeah, it's red-green beatdown.
Yeah, but Nelson, it's unclear if he knows that or not. And Nelson has decided to let this creature through. So he's going to take 6. And now here's Voltaic Brawler. Nelson will untap and draw a card. Ishkana's pretty darn good, as it generally is. Delirium enabled, of course. There's a Swamp.
And now does Nelson have enough going on here where he can attack with the Mind Rack Demon? Keep in mind, he also has the Hissing Quagmire now available as well. And he's got some incentive here to push because of the Ishkana and all the mana that he has.
Looks like he's not comfortable just yet with attacking.
I'm guessing the Voltaic Brawler just makes it too hard to be sure your spiders are good enough to block through. If he's able to trade off, then he can become a little bit more aggressive.
Again, he kind of has the inevitability in a spot like this, especially with the draw of Ishkana, because that's going to lead to just more draw steps.
Yep.
But he could get burned out in a spot like this, because we did see at least one Incendiary Flow. I believe another one in Zackery Phillips' hand if he draws a third one.
Oh, Brad has to be worried. He saw one earlier, too, but many, many turns ago, one of them killed his Tireless Tracker, so he's aware that Phillips has access to it.
Phillips weighing in on an attack here with the Bristling Hydra. Here it comes. 6/5 with a little bit of energy left to give away. Quagmire is going to get fired up. And that'll be your block. At least attempt at it. Yep, that'll work.
Great trade there for Nelson.
Yeah, Death Touch going to work just fine. And that'll be Phillips' turn. So now Nelson will untap all of those lands. He will draw a card. Well, Dead Weight is going to slow that down. I'm curious to see how aggressive he wants to get.
Well, he still has to have some respect for the Hellion. But that was a great draw. both clearing out Phillips' last threat and being cheap enough that Ishkana can be activated. And now, if I'm Nelson, I'm looking to see if I can close this out in 2 turns.
Yeah, especially with the Ishkana activation. As you
yeah. Can you make an attack here that protects you from something on the way back, allows you to activate Ishkana, and then untap, attack again, and finish out the game? Because Phillips has all sorts of dangerous draws here.
It was an attack for 8 to bring Phillips down to 11. You see Nelson thumbing through his lands. He's ready to pay for Ishkana as necessary.
I like leaving back 2 spiders there. It doesn't change the clock and allows him to beat Hellion plus removal spell. See Nelson thumbing through the sideboard right now. Looks like his Grim Flayers got cut.
I could see doing that on the draw. That's one thing that Brad wrote about over the past couple of weeks is when to keep Grim Flayer in on the play versus the draw, what matchups you want to do it in, and what you're trying to establish from a gameplay standpoint.
Well, he's getting beat down, and oddly enough, Grim Flayer isn't big enough to block Phillips' early threats.
Well, there's the Hellion. Here's the attack. Can't block fast enough. Nelson will activate Ishkana before the spider dies. Seven to 6 now. The follow-up is Incendiary Flow. But if that's all Phillips has, I believe he is going to die this turn.
He's at 7, and there's 8 on the battlefield. So
forgot to pay the energy. Here's the attack. And I believe that should take care of this game. Nelson going to be a little careful here. Wants to make sure he doesn't lose to something silly. Plummet does kind of work its way into the equation a little bit, I guess.
Well, even with Plummet, if he attacks with everything, he can still activate Ishkana. Oh, no, at that point it doesn't work. No, he's way short if it's an anti-flyer spell.
Well, that is going to do it. Brad Nelson going to win this match over Zackery Phillips, 2-0. Black-Green Delirium going to take care of Red-Green Energy. And for Nelson, he is really kicking some butt here with his Delirium deck. Won in Knoxville a couple weeks ago, and he's off to another great start here through our standard portion of the Invitational. 7-2 for Brad.
And it's interesting, too, because Brad, we talk about a lot being very into metagame reading and trying to have the perfect 75 and not getting married to one particular deck. It's rare we see him play the same standard deck week in.